Hey, this is Nick the Mining Book Guy, and today is very early morning, Thursday, January 26th. And as you can see, this is a presentation on Sarama, but it's on more than that. I've got definitely some other companies to touch on, and this is just amazing timing. There are some fascinating events that have occurred just in the last couple of weeks, which will be definitely a main focus. But I've got a lot going on in this video, and I want to get through kind of a few key points before getting into the meat of the presentation. So first of all, no hard sell is coming from me. Before I go any further, there's a few different groups of people that may enjoy this presentation in different ways. First group, people who own Sarama, are interested in owning it, or general interest in African gold juniors, and this can include a lot of people who visit CEO.ca. I'll be coming back to one of my favorite sites over and over again throughout this presentation. You should definitely watch the whole thing. If you're wanting to learn just how to research juniors and various tips to improve your research, even if you have no interest in the specific companies, you should still watch the whole thing. I'll be having some, what I think are some pretty good tips throughout in different sections. Now, if you're only interested in some specific companies, and that might be because I'm posting a link to this video to a few company rooms, and some examples are Endeavour Mining, Teranga Gold, Savary Gold, Nexus Gold. I'm going to have specific sections. If you scroll down on this YouTube page, there should be a link to each of those companies. I recommend you check those out first because I don't want you to miss that. And if you like that, then watch other parts of the presentation or the whole thing. But also, if it's just too long, that's another reason to just check out the sections, because I know a lot of people don't want to sit through this, and this is probably going to end up being about 30 minutes. I'm not sure yet, but I'll try as quickly as I can without skipping over anything too important. Now, the whole reason for this is I really think Sarama is possibly the best risk reward out there, and I just want to go through a summary before I start going through the nitty gritty. So number one, timeline and disclosure. I'm going to go through some of the best resources that aren't my own, and you can check those out, right away or on your own time. Number two, Bondi is very key here. I'm going to have a special section just on that because I don't think it's been covered by anyone else. South Hounde Belt consolidation with Endeavour and Acacia. I know for a fact that no one else has covered this. This is one of those special things that happened in the last couple of weeks, so that could be really interesting. And I'll even talk about at some point, how Sarama could be worth easily, $1 per share Canadian or more, even if the gold price doesn't move. Number four, competitors. We'll discuss a few competitors and why Sarama is, what I think the cheapest, best risk reward in the region. And finally, kind of combined with that, reviewing some of the near-term catalysts, a little bit more talk about competitors and relative valuation, and some price targets. So let's get right into the timeline section. I guess I have a few different charts. I'm not great with charts, and I can't figure out which of these is the most interesting. So I was looking at TMX Money, Yahoo Finance, and then I'll make this a little bigger. And again, CO.ca is awesome. The charts might not be your favorite, but they're pretty useful still right now. I'm going to go to the 3-year. So all of these are roughly the 3-year. But I'll go back to the Yahoo, and I just kind of want to combine my own experience and a disclosure here. I own a ton of shares of Sarama. I started buying back in 2014. I'm independent from the company. Independent speculator. I just want to be clear that no one's endorsing me with this. I can say whatever I want. So I was very lucky to actually start buying heavy right at the bottom. Literally 3.5, 4 cents were some of my early big purchases, and then the blockbuster deal with Acacia occurred, and the stock doubled. And I just want to make the point, at this time, CEO.ca didn't exist. I wasn't really talking to anyone, but I was following Stockhouse, and on Stockhouse, there were a lot of people that made some nice money there, but my impression is a lot of them sold out after a double or maybe a triple, which they could have gotten right here. And then you kind of went into no man's land. And this has just look at this volume. That was huge volume around the Acacia deal throughout 2015. there really wasn't much going on. Most of my accumulation occurred here. So this is kind of a tip, like juniors are really weird. And if you're like a newbie to this area, sometimes the best time to buy is when no one else is buying. That works for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but that's what happened. And there were some good news releases here, but just, no one seemed to care. Sometimes there literally was no volume after a decent news release, and this was Sarama doing work on the South Hounde JV, which is the Acacia property, and so a lot was going on. The stock wasn't moving, and I was even getting a little worried early in 2016 because I was in a CEO.ca, so I'm gonna minimize this window. If you check out the Sarama room at CEO.ca, a lot of it is me talking to myself, especially if you scroll all the way up. So there's tons of content here, but when it comes down to it, things obviously from this chart took off when you started getting into the spring. And I want to make a point that I made a video which you can definitely watch. I definitely have a link in the notes below, but coincidentally, it came out around the same time as this guy, Ben Kramer-Miller, wrote an excellent article. So Ben is someone I was aware of, but I had no idea that he was going to post this. And what's really cool is I reached out to him later. He discovered Sarama on his own, and I thought he had an interesting way of even coming across the company. This is a great, great intro. I also want to point out that he wrote a follow-up article just a few months ago. So these are two different articles covering the same stuff. I highly recommend this is the first place you should read about Sarama if you haven't read this yet. I mean, you literally should read it right now, or you can read it right after watching this video. But Ben is a really nice guy. I think he's worth at a minimum subscribing to his free newsletter, which I am. I don't pay for any newsletters, but definitely check out Mining Wealth if you're interested in Sarama, and you can see what other companies that Ben covers. Jordan Roy Byrne, he runs the Daily Gold, and I immediately want to follow up with this because I wasn't 100% sure, but because I don't subscribe to paid newsletters, but I'm pretty sure that he was the biggest influence on this spike because I do know after the fact that he did pick Sarama. He gave me permission to mention that, but to be fair to subscribers, I don't want to share any other content that he has out there, except to tell you, definitely subscribe to his weekly, his free newsletter, and also just be aware he has all sorts of cool free videos and podcasts that you don't even have to subscribe to. I think honestly he is one of the best in terms of having great free content in an area that I'm not as familiar as great with, like technical analysis and shorter term understanding of gold and all the miners. So I actually chat with Jordan fairly regularly now on CEO.ca. That's another great place to meet people. I mean, I've met a lot of people that way, but I just wanted to do a shout out to Jordan and for you to realize that he had a lot of influence here. And unfortunately, the stock came back down. We don't have control over that, but hopefully he continues to support the stock. And then one other, Jay. So Jay's a buddy of mine. And we talk all the time on CEO.ca, and we've had a lot of phone calls. And I have to say, this was pleasantly surprised because this was the most recent. This is November 29th, so just a couple months ago. And he combined a few different companies here, but this is a great one to read after Ben Kramer-Miller's, or after if you subscribe to Jordan's and see his, because this is the most recent. And I really especially liked the way he used some numbers at the end. He talked a little bit about how important Bondi was, which is something that I consider a key aspect to the Sarama value right now, and even talked about some catalysts. We'll get into that later. But all three of these guys you should check out, and they've all been talking about it basically in 2016, and I will very briefly say that I bought a ton of shares down here. I did sell a decent amount of shares between 40 and 50 cents, but I still held on to the vast majority, and I actually bought back basically all the shares that I sold between 25 and as low as 14.5 cents, and I even bought literally just today at 16.5 because I can't believe the stock price is now at 15.5. So I will just tell you, this is another reason this video is great timing. I can't believe how cheap this is, compared to what they've accomplished and where it was. But we'll get into some of the more specific reasons right now. And the most specific is to talk about Bondi. So this is, to me, maybe the not necessarily most overlooked, but maybe just not understood. And I'm going to try to explain why this is so important. You can see the numbers here. There's some good-looking numbers in terms of, high grade, relatively high grade gold for near surface. It's a small satellite deposit, and Sarama got it from Orezone. But I'm going to sit on this page. I have to say this is one of my favorite visuals. I just think it's so clear. Make a quick comment. The Charkha Digu property, that is the property they got from Orezone, and Bondi is the name of the deposit. From here on out, I'm just going to call this whole thing Bondi, just because it's easier, but I just wanted to clarify there. It's adjacent to Sarama's other properties, and going through some of the highlights, the upfront acquisition cost was less than $4 per ounce in shares, and yes, there are some back-end warrants, and there's a capped royalty, but this is just incredible value that Sarama got. They basically bought, ounces instead of drilling for them. And I just think that you have to take a step back and realize that there's a time for drilling and there's a time for consolidating. And I think this was one of the most brilliant news pieces that I saw of any company last year. And the price didn't really move on it, but I'll tell you for sure, this is worth way more than $3, $4, $5 million. I mean, I think this property is worth at least 10 million Canadian, if not more. So that's we won't go into the details there, but I also want to point out it's called a quote unquote historical estimate instead of a current resource. There are some specific reasons. One is that even though there's an NI 43101 that was on it, it was back in 2009, and there's some artisanal mining that have kind of maybe messed around with the deposit a bit, but really this is the most advanced deposit that Sarama owns. They're going to own once this deal fully closes, and that's more of a government red tape thing. I confirmed that with Andrew. I really think it's going to close by the end of this quarter, and they're all set to do some drilling and work on it. But on its own, it was a stranded asset. There's something that Orezone couldn't deal with, but it's perfect for Sarama. And we go to this next page. I mean, look, not only is it, I think, high quality ounces, but they can truck it to where potentially a main mill or plant will be. And by the way, I might screw up some terminology, but trust me, I think I've got a handle on things. But you can definitely verify if I messed up any words. But we understand the main concepts. But anyway, I like the way this is presented to show how it works with Sarama. But we'll get into this a little later. There's options here, like depending on who gets involved. Like this deposit could work going north or going in other directions, not just south. And one of the most important pictures is actually just to briefly go over this. We've got oxide ounces at the top, and we're seeing nice intersections at 2 grams per ton, which is really excellent because even 1 gram per ton is pretty economic here. So this is way better than anything Sarama already has. But then you go into the sulfides, you go deeper, and you're looking at 4 grams per ton, but the metallurgy is better than what Sarama already has. And this gets a little complicated. I mean, there's a reason Sarama's valuation got hit a few years ago because of refractory ore. This, from everything I've seen from the metallurgy that's been stated, this is not refractory. So this provides options in terms of working for a heap leach. It can work for a CIL. I mean, basically, this was an incredible acquisition to get all of this for less than $4 per ounce. So I can't emphasize that enough. And this is consolidation instead of drilling. Even though drilling is still useful, it was a brilliant move. And Orezone is now on the registry. And very briefly, just say Ron Little, the guy who runs Orezone, he is one of the most trustworthy people. I haven't met him, but everybody I've talked to says he's one of the most trustworthy and likable people. And he's been in Burkina probably longer than anyone else in mining exploration. So that's a great name to have attached to Sarama. and they're in it for the long term because they got sold this for shares and warrants and a royalty. So all of this is great, and I just want to emphasize that I think the market still hasn't picked up on it, and it's already covering most of the current valuation, which is only 18 million. We'll get into that later, but we're going to move on right now to why Endeavour Mining is relevant. And briefly, I want to do a shout out to Stockhouse, because and other people sometimes put down Stockhouse too much, because this used to be the main area, main place for people interested in Canadian miners. But CEO.ca, in my opinion, has already kind of leapfrogged it. But still, for certain rooms like the Endeavour Mining room, the EDV room, I actually think it's far better on Stockhouse than CEO.ca for whatever reason. So I follow it closely. I actually posted here, I just wanted to say that I posted about Acacia's exploration, an interview with Peter Spora, who's the head of exploration. He seems like a pretty clever guy as well, and he's doing all sorts of deals with other companies besides Sarama. But I posted about stuff that he's doing in Kenya and Tanzania, which is where Acacia's focused. But when it comes down to it, the possibility of an Acacia Endeavour merger is why we're talking about Sarama now. And I'm just going to read this briefly. This is the Acacia release from January 13th. Acacia notes the recent media speculation regarding a potential combination with Endeavour Mining. So this was really exciting, and I want to mention it kind of as a tip. I don't own shares in Acacia. I do own shares in Endeavour, but I try to subscribe to as many relevant company news sources as I can. By subscribing to Acacia, I actually learned about this news a few hours before Endeavour had it, and I didn't use it for any sneaky arbitrage or anything. But like that's this type of news could have been an opportunity somewhere else. So it's always a good idea, just as a tip, to sign up for as many email services as you can. That goes for newsletters, or it goes for companies as well. But more importantly, this wasn't just some blah blah rumor. Look at this headline, and hat tip to the Stockhouse crew, because somebody posted this and I wasn't aware of it till I saw them post it. Billionaire Sawiris behind planned Endeavour Acacia merger. This is huge, even though we haven't had full confirmation, and this is still in early talks. This whole merger thing could fall apart. The fact that it's coming from Endeavour, and it's coming from Naguib Sawiris, who is the largest shareholder in Endeavour. He's a billionaire from a billionaire family in Egypt. I think Endeavour has a vision to turn the combined Endeavour Acacia company not just into a Randgold competitor, but into a Barrick competitor, or a Newmont competitor, and at least right now with the main focus in Africa, West Africa and East Africa. And that's pretty amazing and pretty exciting. And it's even more exciting, and this comes into the Stockhouse, again, kudos. The Stockhouse people, unlike the CEO.ca people, really hit on the fact that the main overlap comes from Sarama, not just Sarama, but the South Hounde Belt. And actually, I'm going to show that real quick, just as an example. South Hounde Belt is a room I created at CEO.ca, and you can create any room you want. I'm the only person that's ever posted in here, I believe. But if you want to get a good idea of what Acacia and Endeavour might be getting into, this is a great room for you to check out. I've just been posting stuff, going back a year and a half, and it's finally becoming super relevant. But as something that people should be more aware of, but probably aren't, if you check Acacia presentations, they have some amazing presentations. I have to say, I get some of the news I get on Sarama through these presentations is better than anywhere else. And the Exploration Roundtable from November 30th, this was one of the best. I'm not gonna go through this in detail, but there's a link. This is one of the top 3 links I'm sharing with you today. So I highly recommend, especially the Endeavour Mining people, to check this out. But of course, anybody interested in Sarama. I just want to point out that this was not always true. That the Hounde Belt, Sarama, where Sarama and other juniors have deals with Acacia, it was not clearly in the top two, and now it is based on these slides. And you can see here that this is Acacia's main, where they produce, but this is one of their important exploration areas. Actually, Burkina more than Mali, but they're definitely, trying to get their foot in the door. There's a lot of drilling that's going to be coming. We're going to skip through some of this Kenya stuff, and I just want to show you a few other things. You can see, there's plenty of gold in the northern Hounde Belt, but the south or southern Hounde Belt, that's our interest. We're zooming in here. This is a great image. This is the most important image in the whole thing. Notice this big gap here. So Acacia has deals all across here, but there's this big gap. You know what that gap is? And there's actually another image. This is from a previous Acacia PowerPoint, which is also good. For some reason, they filled it in here. This was the Savary and Sarama JV, the Karankaso, and then Bondi's still empty. I feel like they don't want to be too obvious that Sarama has the best land that links all the other stuff that Acacia needs. So if we take a step back and we don't even include Endeavour, Acacia needs this. If this is going to become, a district, they need Sarama's land, including Savary, but still, Sarama's right at the middle of it. But they don't want to be too obvious about that. But I think it's going to become even more wanted. It's like absolute necessity if they do, a merger with Endeavour, and maybe that's part of the whole deal to begin with. But I also want to just point out one other thing to show it's not just a Sarama or Savary deal, but Thor, which is another company I own, Thor Explorations, they're in the northern part, and you can see that this purple area, they actually have the best soil samples in the area. There's so much going on here, and Thor actually has some drilling going on. I'll touch on that later, but Thor has drilling going on. Sarama has all sorts of drilling going on. It's overwhelming right now, but this is a hot area. It's not just about Sarama, but Sarama's right now in the best position there. So we'll see if Acacia and Endeavour actually do something, but regardless, Acacia's still very interested in 2017. This is also one of the better links I'm providing. The Endeavour people might know about this. This is straight from their website. I just want to point out, over 200 pages. I can't believe they're sharing this so openly. This is just an Investor Day presentation, but if you want to know about Endeavour, this is the best piece Endeavour has ever released, and I'm not going to go through it in detail at all, but I just want to make it clear. Hounde is one of the is right now the flagship project. It's possible that IDI could become an equal or superior flagship project. I guess they're kind of competing for interest for Endeavour, but it's very clear that Hounde and Burkina Faso are just super important. And you can see here, this whole area, like going diagonally, that's where the main interest for Endeavour is. And these happen to be two of my favorite jurisdictions in West Africa, so it's just very exciting that Endeavour's doing so well, and we'll see what happens with Acacia. But it's not just those two. I'm actually on the Teranga page right now, but I want to ask a question. What if a merger between Endeavour and Acacia removes the possibility of a bidding war? That was something I actually thought about within an hour or two after I saw that news release from Acacia. And the thing is, this is something I haven't really seen anyone else talk about. Teranga is the wild card. And here's a big tip. This is a big one. It's worth listening to entire webcasts because you never know what nuggets you might find. And here's a nugget right here. I'm going to let you listen in for about a minute. There's going to be the end of a question, but really the answers from Richard Young, the CEO of Teranga, is what you really want to listen in on.
How much work was done already? How much money was spent on Griffin and Invest? And how evaluated are the properties already?
John, that's a great question. So to start out with, the Mimran family is new to gold. They're one of the largest employers and investors in West Africa, and they're considered local. David himself, who's on our board, spends 20 days of each month in West Africa, split between Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, running the family businesses. So in terms of where we're going once the transaction closes, we'll have at least 2 drill rigs on the Vancouver project, converting resources to reserve, expanding that number above 1 million ounces, and then we'll probably have at least 2 drill rigs on Golden Hill, which is one of their exploration targets on the Hounde Belt. There's been historic drilling on that, but not. They've done a lot of work in preparing. There's about 5 to 10 ready targets, and then we'll explore Gorma. We may spend between $5 and $10 million over the next 15 months in Burkina on exploration.
All right, I think it might cut out a little bit at the end, but hopefully well, if you didn't hear it, $5 to $10 million on Burkina exploration in the next year, and at least a few million of that, I believe, is going right into Golden Hill. And this is what's kind of neat. Like, who knew that this was going to happen? First of all, it was a surprise that Teranga bought Griffin Minerals, which was an Aussie company with their main project, the Banfora Gold. But they had these other interesting little exploration projects, and easily the more interesting of the two was Golden Hill. Look where Golden Hill is. This is a nice little image, so you can see SEMAFO, Roxgold, Endeavour, and then Sarama, of course, is down here. But we'll zoom in a little bit to show you a little more. I want to do another quick shout out to CO.ca. It's a great place to very quickly pick up news releases. Like, I did a search and I found this one from October, and kind of hidden in here, you scroll down, and Teranga is pretty open with talking about Golden Hill and Gorma. But again, Golden Hill is the one we're interested in, and there's some really nice images. They're not talking about too many specifics, but again, they might have 1 or 2 drill rigs, like really looking for some interesting stuff. And this is very useful. So these are some of the images. This image is probably the best one I've seen of the middle area of the Hounde Belt. So up here, this is SEMAFO. This is their flagship. This is Roxgold. That's really nice too. And this is Hounde for Endeavour getting built. This is where it really shows you Teranga is literally adjacent to the south to Endeavour. And guess who's right down here? Bondi. Going back here, we're gonna go back to this page just to be crystal clear. Yeah, like basically Teranga's right here and Hounde's up here. And I'm just pointing out, like, putting the puzzle together is so important, because I'll tell you, even the professionals, they don't really think about all this or know all the pieces. But Teranga's a key piece here. And so regardless of what happens with Endeavour or Acacia, but even if Endeavour and Acacia come together, Teranga is drilling right now, and this is a really exciting property. Now, you don't see that much here, but you can tell, high priority drill target, Q4 2016 going into 2017. There's a lot going on here. I have another tip though. Because this is an Aussie company, Hot Copper is an excellent site. It's kind of like the CEO.ca or Stockhouse of Australia. In some ways, it's better than both, but it is a little difficult sometimes to navigate, but has a great search engine. And what's cool is that even though Griffin was acquired, you can very easily still see all of its old info. And this is from 2014. So this was the page, but I'll show you what I pulled from it. You don't have to go through all the details, but I'm just showing you how you can pick up more interesting stuff if you want to. This is on Golden Hill, and actually you get a lot more details about the prospectivity, soil sampling. This one doesn't show it, but there's actually some really high grade drill results, kind of reminiscent of what you see in Roxgold, because it's on the same strike. So I have to say, no one else is talking about this. Teranga is definitely a wild card here, even if Endeavour and Acacia get together. But if Endeavour and Acacia are still competing, you basically have 3 mid-tiers or approaching majors kind of interested in this area. It's a hot area, and there might be other companies as well, like Roxgold or SEMAFO, but always keep in mind Teranga, Endeavour, and Acacia right now, because that's those are the big players we're looking at. So with that said, just as a final note, I'm gonna put a link up right now to my West Africa video, because there's also this battle of the billionaires going on. You've got this Naguib Sawiris with Endeavour, and then you've got David Mimram, who is mentioned in that video, the Mimram family, who are billionaires, who are the largest shareholders in Teranga. That's another reason I think there could be some competition. So that's just kind of a fun side note, but it could be interesting. And yeah, if you own Endeavour and you don't really know much about didn't know much about what's going on, you want to own Sarama if you're looking to take advantage of this potential consolidation. So I think that's a good place to stop for the Endeavour section. We're going to move on to the competitor section, and maybe one of the best ones is to discuss Savary. Now we're always looking at these similar types of maps. This is Savary's map. I really want to point out, look, this is Savary. They don't have anything else. We're going to go back to, see, this is Savary, but Sarama owns 31% of it. So Savary owns 69% of one project, and that's it. Sarama owns this. They own these things. They own other stuff I'm not even talking about. So that's a huge difference right there. Now, as positives, Don Dudek, whom I like, I've talked to him a few times. He runs Savary. He used to be the VP of Exploration at IAMgold, which was the Hounde project. That's a huge plus. I mean, who knows, how interested he is in this Endeavour Acacia type thing. But Endeavour also still owns shares in Savary because it was kind of spun out, during that whole process. So there's that connection. And then a big one, Ross Beaty is the largest shareholder of Savary. And if you know anything about the mining industry, you probably know Ross Beaty's name. Those are all clear positives. But what else is there? And I'm not asking this to be facetious. Like, I wouldn't say I'm concerned, but I feel like Sarama, at least so far, has kind of outplayed Savary. And this goes back to the drilling versus consolidating. And, this is from the Sarama slide deck. I don't want to belabor this point too much, and this can get a little confusing, especially if you're kind of new to this. But I want to make an important point about attributable ounces. Sorry, I'm butchering that name, but this is showing where Sarama was just a little while ago. This is actually kind of important. This shows Sarama at 75%, basically at the beginning of this year. We're basically right at the official point where Sarama owns 50% of the South Hounde JV, this blue part. So what it means is that the attributable ounces is going down from 2.2 million to roughly 1.7 million. Well, the market cap is about 18 million. What it leads to is that Sarama's ounces in the ground are about $11 to $12 per attributable ounce. Now, Savary, they only have the other part, or roughly a little more than 2/3 of the Karankaso project. That's about 440,000 ounces, and their market cap is 15 million. Well, their attributable ounces is about $34 per attributable ounce. That is almost 3 times, how much for Sarama. That's kind of interesting because I didn't do this calculation, and intuitively, based on all the projects and the value, I feel like Sarama should be worth at least 3 times as much as Savary. So the very rough analysis I just said, kind of supports that. But again, one thing that's even better for Sarama is not only are Bondi's ounces more advanced, and that's why Bondi, acquiring that was so big, but Sarama has far more oxide ounces, which are easier to get out of the ground and could lead to a small project. I mean, Savary is not even close on its own to that. So I'm just trying to make the points. I'm not trying to say Savary is awful, but there's so many reasons that Sarama is better. Now, I'm going to put a bad aspect to both Savary and Sarama very briefly. I think one thing that's possibly bad on Savary, and maybe bad on the investors, and this is kind of a question, especially for people in Savary right now, did you really know that Sarama owns 31% of the Karankaso project, which is this one, and all the other stuff I just talked about, which is all of this stuff and more that Savary doesn't have anything of? Because I really wonder if some investors think Savary owns 100% of Karankaso and we're completely unaware of the other projects. Honestly, this is something to think about if you're a Savary shareholder and you've never owned shares in Sarama. So I think, all the stuff I just mentioned, I'm not telling you need to go out and buy Sarama right away, but I think it'd be kind of ridiculous to own Savary shares and not Sarama when you know all these facts. But with that said, if there's a big negative on Sarama's part, because I don't want to be purely positive on this, you think about it, Sarama, Savary, and then you look at their tickers, SWA and SCA, SWA or SCA or whatever. Honestly, Sarama should have taken the initiative to change. I think it helped me a few years ago to get in cheaply that there was this confusion and Sarama got super cheap. I mean, at one point it was selling for cash with 1.5 million ounces in the ground, which was crazy. But now I wish they were more differentiated because I think Savary benefits from this confusion. And Savary is not necessarily overvalued, but Sarama is undervalued because of the confusion. I really feel that way. And by the way, I bought Savary originally at 2 or 2.5 cents, and it was my first multi-bagger in the sector. So like, I mean, I'm not like big negative on Savary at all, but it doesn't feel cheap anymore, and I feel like Sarama's kind of pulled away now. Unless Don's got like some magic tricks, some stuff that's not public at all. You know, then I mean that would be something good. And honestly, I still own my Savary just in case there's something that's really good that's going to happen. And I think Savary is going to get acquired at some point anyway. But nothing public is showing that Savary is doing anything beyond drilling, and the drilling, the last results were kind of mediocre, and they definitely weren't as good, close to as good as the Bondi acquisition by Sarama. I mean, that was far better than anything that Savary and Sarama have pulled off together on Carncasso. So, we'll see what happens there. But it's not so much that Savary should be cheaper. It's just that Sarama's valuation should be much higher. And one final question: if no one's ever given me a good reason for why they should be roughly the same as they are now, like, do you have one? I mean, really, you can reach out to me on co.ca or on Stockhouse, because I'm going to post this up there. I still want to know. No one has told me why Savary is expensive it is. So we'll leave it at that. But really, if you own shares in Savary, I'm not telling you to sell your shares in Savary, but you should really consider owning shares in Sarama as well. And we'll move on to just a few more things. We're going to look at I forgot to just show this, but Sarama, just under 19 million Canadian market cap at the end of the day, and Savary's at like 15 million, and to me that's unacceptable. But we're going to another company where I couldn't believe it's even more outrageous. So Nexus Gold. First, I have to say a shout out to Goldfinger on co.ca, who's an awesome contributor there. I thank him for mentioning Nexus Gold because I never took a close look until literally yesterday. And I posted a ton of stuff in ceo.ca on it. And you can check this room and scroll up a little bit. And I didn't say the nicest stuff, but I'm also not saying it's like the worst company. But there's I'm being honest. There's a lot of red flags here, and the real kicker is look at this move. Not just today, which was 50%, but look, going back 3 months. Okay, so it's going parabolic. This is what gets me. 25 million market cap. We're going to go back to Sarama. 19 million. So I mean, so this is one of those fascinating things. I shouldn't be like angry or anything. I mean, it's great in a way that there's this much interest in burkina, but something doesn't sit right with me. We're checking the Nexus website. So I know this company used to be focused in Nevada, and they had some weird, black box technology. Whatever they were doing obviously didn't work out because they still have the property, but all the focus has been on burkina. But this is an example of, this is a recent news release. So you see, gold samples 403 grams per ton. I have noticed that they did add photos and visuals after the fact to the website, but this news release doesn't have it. You can see them highlighting the high grades. This might lead to something interesting. I don't know, but this is not drilling. They're not at the diamond drilling or the RC drilling. This company does not have any gold in the ground. I mean, this is a pure exploration play, and it's worth 25 million. And get this, when Sarama has almost 2 million attributable ounces, over 3 million ounces when you include the JVs, it doesn't compute. I mean, it's nuts. I'm just telling you, this is nuts, and I haven't seen this, before for two companies in Africa, like in an area that I focus on. I feel like this is not going to last. But you know what? If you're a Nexus shareholder, good on you. I mean, you just made some big bucks, especially if you bought even just a few days ago. But this is about short-term versus long-term, about risk versus reward. It's an easy, easy, easy decision to sell your Nexus shares for Sarama if you're serious about betting on a company that's backstopped by a ton of gold, by great deals, by a great management team, by literally great everything except for the promotion. And they're not going to need the promotion beyond kind of what I'm doing right now, which again isn't a hard sell, or some of the other newsletter writers. I think it's gonna work on itself. So we'll see what happens. But this is just crazy that that a company like Nexus is worth more. Even if Nexus finds something, how much gold are they going to find? Even if it's high grade, and this is what it comes down to. Sarama has 4th tier and 5th tier properties that are probably going to be drilled at some point that are possibly more valuable than anything Nexus has right now, even with these high grade samples. I'm serious. I'm really serious about that. But then just think about Bondi, which is not even, again, we're going to go back here. It's just this little thing. Sarama bought Bondi for less than 4 US dollars per ounce up front. Do you really think Nexus Gold is going to find gold that cheaply, which is already really difficult to do? And are they going to even find that much of it? Because there's plenty of high-grade gold around Burkina, but 50,000 ounces or 100,000 ounces, that's not going to make you a mine. No, I mean, so I'm just telling you, it's ridiculous. I call this the Bondi challenge. I mean, and really, I haven't seen anyone really critically analyze Nexus. I'm open to it. Do it at CO.ca. I mean, add to the story. I beg you, or I don't know. I don't beg you. I'm open to it. I'm always open to talking about this stuff. But I'm telling you, if you're a Nexus shareholder, you should be buying not just Sarama, but Savary too. Even though I like Sarama a lot better than Savary, Savary's got a lot more going for it than Nexus does. So I'm just being honest in terms of real fundamentals and the teams behind it and all that. But more power to you if you made money in Nexus, and we'll see what happens. So, with that, I guess we're kind of wrapping up here. And with the catalysts, I just want to kind of go through these, even though Jay went through them in his presentation. So they're going to close the Bondi transaction, which is all but closed, but just some government stuff. There's a ton of money going into the ground, and we don't even have time to go into the details. Now, Karankaso, we've already got some results that were kind of mediocre, but really that affects Savary more than Sarama, because that's not even in Sarama's top 2 projects. I'd say it's number 3, but it's not even in the top 2. South Hounde is definitely up there, and Bondi's not really so much about discovering more. It's an awesome strategic asset. So I'm personally most interested in South Hounde, but keep in mind, Sarama could continue to consolidate, and it's the stuff that's going around Sarama that actually matters even more. So we're talking about Teranga having drill results. That's huge. We're talking about Thor having drill results. That's going to help both Sarama and Savary. And then the big one, the Endeavour, the Acacia, what's going to happen there? So I'm adding those to this list, and we didn't even talk about Banfora, which is a good set of assets too. So there's so much going on for this $18 million company right now. Trading at 15.5 cents. I'm going to be kind of casual about this, but I'm telling you, just as a fellow speculator who owns a ton of shares, and again, you don't have to buy anything, but I would say it's pretty safe to buy up to 30 cents Canadian per share. I mean, I've felt that way for a while now, and you could go even higher, but I feel very comfortable, basically, double the current price, that you could buy up to that, and we'd be really looking for this going to $1 per share or plus, within 2 years. Now that might be after, it gets acquired for less than $1 per share, but the company that acquires it goes up further. I don't know. I really think if it gets acquired, it's going to be for at least 50 cents a share, but it should be more than that. But for me, this is the best risk reward. I mean, $1 per share, that's going to be, over 100 million market cap easily, and it's going to be over a 5 times return. And I can't find anything else that has as good of a risk reward, even though I'm super biased, and you just should realize that. I just want to mention one more time, there's other players. There's SEMAFO, there's Roxgold on the belt, and just another one to compare to, West African Resources, 135 million market cap. This is an interesting one to follow, partially because they're going to have a feasibility study and bring some interest back to Burkina, from the bigger players. It might get acquired, but also I actually don't think Sarama's that far behind it. it is in market cap, 135 million compared to 18 million, but it's another reason that could help Sarama with momentum, and also Sarama just should be worth a lot more. So I couldn't go into too much detail on everything, but I think this is long enough. I hope you enjoyed at least part of this video, and if anything, you take advantage of some of the resources, because there's lots of good stuff in there. You can find me on CEO.ca, in various rooms, and definitely feel free to reach out to me. And I'll even mention my email again, miningbookguy@gmail.com. Reach out to me, because I'm more than happy to talk about this stuff. And I really think 2017 is going to be exciting for Sarama, and we're going to go back to gold miners consolidating in Africa, and Sarama's in the best locations. So, that's that. Again, this is Nick the Mining Book Guy. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.